Like she said, I'm Anju Kish, and I'm a sex educator. Did anybody here educator? And I'm sure to a whole lot of you, even the educator sounded like a vibrator. Yes, that's the story of my life. In a country where the word sex is misconstrued so much, when I say that my sex education workshops begin at age 5, I get raised eyebrows and dirty looks. What? Sex education for a 5-year-old? You must be out of your mind. I see a lot of raised eyebrows here too. A valid reaction, some would say. Well, let's see. Let me tell you of an incident which happened in Mumbai recently. A 5-year-old girl living in a typical Mumbai high-rise was escorted every day from the 17th floor to the ground floor by an old and trusted liftman where her school bus awaited her in the lobby. Now, one day, in the absence of the liftman, her father took her in the lift. As soon as he entered the lift with her and the doors closed, this little 5-year-old girl lifted her skirt, pulled down her underpants, and said, "Okay, give me the chocolate now." Do you still think sex education is not required for this 5-year-old? Wouldn't it have armed her to protect her innocence? Some eyebrows have come down, but some are still up there. Let me tell you another case of a 7-year-old. This 7-year-old boy was asked in the school bus by the older kids whether he has been to USA. And no, these older boys were not asking him whether he had been to United States of America. What these boys were asking him was, had he been to the underskirt area? How, as a parent, do I protect my child from this exposure? And this exposure is everywhere. I want you all in this room today to imagine a scenario. A child gets up in the morning and goes for a walk and may possibly come across 2 dogs making out. A question pops in his mind, but he doesn't voice it. In newspapers, full-page lingerie ads. On way to school, hoardings like this, big billboards on the road. In school bus, he's privy to conversations of older children. And at home, television gives him adult content to view. And songs with lewd lyrics are part of his growing up years. What is the impact of this exposure? Obviously, his curiosity levels are raised. But there's silence at home, and there's silence in school. And he turns to the internet for answers. And that's when a complete Pandora's box opens up. He has entered a world where he cannot differentiate between fact and fiction. A 14-year-old boy told me, "Ma'am, girls like to be hit when having sex." Where is this belief coming from? Obviously, porn has been this boy's sex educator, and his belief about women and sex has been formed. How do we protect our children? For those of you who still believe that sex education should not be given to children, let me just decode sex education for you. To put it in simple terms, if you are teaching your children the names of their genitals, that is sex education. If you're talking to your daughter about periods, that is sex education. If you're teasing your child about crushes or teaching them gender respect or respecting different orientation people, that is sex education. If the women out here are talking to your gynac about menopause, that is sex education. And even if you're talking to your child about the good touch and the bad touch, that is sex education too. Unfortunately, all of us think sex education is a talk on sex with the child, but that is a very, very tiny part of it and does not even start at the basic level. I think the resistance to sex education is because of this word sex in the term sex education. This word sex gets completely magnified, and such a big and important word right next to it, education, becomes invisible. So this entire connotation of the word makes people completely reject sex education. When I started my journey in the field of sex education, and I quit a very lucrative job in an ad agency to do that, not only was my work rejected, I was rejected too. I faced a lot of sniggering, and especially from people I knew. All non-veg jokes would be forwarded to me. Any party with naughty games to be organized, Anju will do it. Any news item about Kama Sutra or new sex positions, they would be forwarded to me. People's attitude towards me changed. Not only towards me, but unfortunately towards my family too. My husband would get sly comments like, "Oh, so your wife's a sex educator, huh? Lucky you." I don't know what they thought that meant. And unfortunately, my children, my two little boys, bore the brunt of it. They were nicknamed Honey Pony in school and told that their mother teaches kids how to have sex. That hurt. That really hurt. And I think that was the time I almost gave up. But I think my passion towards this subject and towards the fact that I thought we needed this so badly made me realize that these people were not reacting to me. They were reacting to the word sex in sex education. So I said, all right. I took my workshops and I put them to the side, and I said, I'm going to first tackle this problem and I'm going to break the mindsets of adults. So I started offering free talks to anybody who'd care to listen. I would go to organizations, corporates, social clubs, service clubs, even kiddie parties, and give my talk explaining what sex education was. There would be times when I would expect a crowd of 40 and 50 to be present at a talk, and I would see that only 2 have turned up. But I was stubborn. I refused to let those 2 walk out without listening to my talk, because I strongly believed that education has a ripple effect. And sure enough, things started changing. Then I pulled out my workshops and I created interesting ways to promote that workshop, to those, my workshops, ways of imparting sex education. I created a play which was a complete laugh riot on puberty. I wrote blogs for parents to help them understand concepts, WhatsApp support groups for moms to help them answer the questions their kids were asking. A book, of course, on sex education, which is like a story to be read to a child. I even went and studied comedy so that I could use that platform to bust mindsets about sex education, to make people laugh about their mindsets and then plant a seed for thought. And things started changing. Doors started opening wide. But there were still some niggling doubts people had about sex education. Will it corrupt my child? Will it put thoughts in his mind which are not there? Well, the media has anyways put that thought, the exposure, the thoughts are already there in the children's mind. But because of silence on the subjects, those thoughts are very muddled and very confused and distorted. A 14-year-old boy once told us that, "Ma'am, girls don't need to use a contraceptive while having sex. All they need to do is jump up and down after sex and they will not get pregnant." Really? A 13-year-old girl asked me, "Miss, if it's my dad who's touching my breast, is it still sexual abuse?" My heart breaks every time I hear these misconceptions these children have. And we parents are not listening to them. Another thought is that even if a child as young as 7 asks you what is sex, I'd rather take that child, sit that child down and explain in a very child-friendly manner what sex is. Because if I don't and if you don't, that child is going to turn to the internet. And the internet will not only give him description of what is sex, but also videos to see of what is sex. And that is what will corrupt a child. All sex-related information is not negative. The way that information is presented is negative or positive. A lot of people think that talking to a child about sex, will it be construed by the youth as permission to have sex? Well, going by that logic, if you warn your child about drugs and alcohol and smoking, Does that mean you're giving them permission to have those substances? If you're warning your child about the dangers of fire, are you giving them permission to play with fire? Nothing could be further than the truth. According to a research by Times of India, the average age at which a child in a metro experiments with sex in India is 14. So the children are anyways experimenting. And going by the statistics, we have 16 million teenage pregnancies in India. So the experimentation is definitely not safe. We need to bring in sex education because sex education can actually reduce teenage pregnancies. And now I'm going to say a statement which may have your eyebrows rise up again, that sex education can reduce rapes. A startling study by ABP Live states that, and please listen carefully, 80% of college students in India watch porn. 46% out of that watch rape porn. And a staggering 76% of them said that every time they watch rape porn, they want to rape a woman. And there are 106 rape cases in India every single day. A staggering 53% of children are sexually abused at least once in their growing up years. And if you all look back in your childhood, I'm sure there'll be one instance where you have been inappropriately touched. Give them the sex education. A study done by a lot of researchers, and especially one, Mr. Samuel Smithyman, who interviewed 50 rapists. His study states some common pointers of why men rape, and sex education can actually combat the mindset of a rapist. We have seen, media has shown us umpteen number of times that if you pursue a girl and she says a no, doesn't matter, keep pursuing her and ultimately she would say a yes. Our Bollywood movies are full of this. Sex education busts this mindset. It tells the youth that in real life, if you relentlessly pursue a woman without her permission, it is not romance, it is called stalking. If you pull a girl into your arms forcefully, it is not romance, it is sexual harassment. Sex education teaches them the concept of consent. Today, the statistics, like I told you, the kids are highly addicted to porn, and it leads to a desire to rape, as the study states. Now, sex education gives an alternate to how to control these sexual urges, and that is masturbation. I know eyebrows are going to go up again, but just reflect on this fact that masturbation is one device which does not involve a second person. It does not lead to teenage pregnancies or any pregnancies. It does not lead to sexually transmitted diseases. And sex with oneself is, I don't know how many times, 1,000 times better than forced sex with somebody else. Rejection is another common cause of rape. Sex education teaches the children that in crushes and in love, rejection is a part and parcel of the game. Acceptance is what sex education teaches these children. And when these values taught at a young age, they stick with the youth. See, when attitudes change is when things will change. And sex education is that attitude change maker. If you still don't feel that children should be given sex education, I want you all to just see this video for a moment.
Hello, I am Manasvik. I am 9 years old. In my class, there was my friend. His name is Dushyant. He told me about sex, but I don't know actually what is sex and how many years old we shall be to do sex. Please tell me.
This is just one of the hundreds of questions I receive in my company every month. The kids are asking and parents are struggling to answer these questions. And the easiest way is brush it under the carpet. Tell them that this is not their age to know these answers, or just be quiet, or just give them some fairy tale. But should we be doing that? because when we brush aside their questions is when they turn to the internet. Let's untaboo sex education. We feel don't underestimate the power of small, and sex education is that small which can have a huge impact on society. Let's untaboo sex education. Let's give it to our children and help raise a generation of very well-informed, positively involved generation so that we have a very safe and better India. Thank you.